for a little bit of an introduction to fill in a little bit more from what I said earlier. Yeah, so Luang Por Tiradhammo was, I mentioned that he was one of the early Western disciples of LP Chah. And then he came to Britain in 1982 and lived here. So he was one of the early residents. This was a couple of years before the other monasteries here in Britain opened up, Chithurst being the first after the Hampstead Vihara in London. So Luang Por, he's greatly responsible. He was part of that early community that made this place livable. And so we are all the benefactors of that still, and hopefully continuing on for many generations. And I only found out recently that Luang Por was the abbot here for 6 months. So yeah, so right after Luang Por Sumedho left, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So after Luang Por Sumedho moved up to Amaravati, Luang Por Tiradhammo was the abbot here for 6 months, and so need to add that to the written history. But we're delighted that Luang Por's here, and because many of the more junior members of our community have never had the opportunity to meet. Also, members of the lay community never meet him or have any contact with him. So, without further ado, I will hand over to Luang Por. So, and is there Brahma Chaloka ready?
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ dhammāṃ saṅghāṃ namasāmi. So as you've heard, I'm pretty old. You didn't have to, by extrapolation. Yes, I came here in 1982. Anybody born by 82 here? A few people. So when I came to stay here in 82. I just came from Thailand, and it was, just reflecting upon it, it was, in one ways, it was a bit of a shock, a bit of an adventure, because, trained in the Thai tradition and the Thai climate, etc. And then coming to Britain, it was quite a few different things. But on the other hand, it was also quite familiar to me, because I knew most of the monks who were here. We've been together in Thailand, and also Ajahn Chah was very careful to kind of maintain the very core of our, you could say, forest tradition, procedures and ways of doing things. So it was very, in many ways, it was very, very familiar, but also somewhat challenging, which actually I was up to. I've been in Thailand 8-9 years, and so it gets the routine gets a little bit repetitive after 9 years. But the coming from Thailand to the West, it was a big step, and this, of course, is all due to Ajahn Chah's open mind, I would say. There's other attempts to invite Western Thai monks to come and live in the West, but it wasn't very successful. But for some reason, and it was a little bit of a surprise for us, we had understood they were just going to go to have a look, to test the waters, as it were, and then come back to Thailand. So there was quite a few of us gathered at Wat Nana Chat, which was the international monastery, expecting Ajahn Sumedho to come back and be the abbot again. And lo and behold, he didn't appear. A group of us went to the train station, expecting to receive him, and the train pulled in. Ajahn Chah stepped off, and no Ajahn Sumedho. So, what's going on? It was a day, it was the time before mobile phones and rapid communication. We didn't hear anything. Suddenly, now this is decided right before the rains retreat, and it just so happened that the other monk, who was the second monk, he was just shell shocked. He didn't expect to be the senior monk. He expected to be the second monk. Let Ajahn Chah do all the teaching. And even more surprising was I was number 2. And I couldn't even speak Thai. So anyway, it was a little bit of a challenging rains retreat. Most of the monks had gathered there to listen to Ajahn Chah teaching, and then he didn't appear. So there was a kind of a disappointment in the atmosphere, and but as part of the Thai forest tradition, just endure, oton, just carry on. So we tried anyway, but it was quite challenging anyway. But the second year, I was there at Wat Nanachat, and the second year I thought, now Ajahn Chah was not here anymore, so the teacher is Ajahn Chah, basically. But I didn't even know him. I couldn't speak Thai well enough to really talk to him, and didn't really know who he was. He'd come in sometimes over to Wat Nanachat and give a talk. He would and be very inspiring, and then we had to wait for the translation. And the hardest thing for me was that when he gave a talk, and the monks who spoke Thai, they would burst out laughing, Ajahn Chah's jokes. I'm waiting for the translation, and it wasn't funny. I want to hear that joke in the original language, So I determined to go to live with Ajahn Chah at Wat Ba Pong and stay there and study him. I bought a tape recorder from Wat Nanachat and would record his talks and go back to my hut and play them back again and look in the dictionary and ask the Thai monks what he was saying. And so gradually I learned what his sort of, vernacular was. He usually repeats similar teachings over and over again. And it was very fortunate that at that time, Ajahn Chah was just becoming more well-known in central Thailand. So he had to give quite a few talks in central Thai language. Normally he speaks Laotian, which I couldn't understand at all. And there wasn't even any language books to learn Laotian. But fortunately he could speak simple Thai, so it was very easy to learn that. Well, easy. Is Thai easy? Okay. And it was also, he spoke. He did have a, we could say monastic language, like we translate the Pali words. A lot of Pali words are translated to Thai directly, but the Thais put a certain kind of, what would you say, intonation, or they changed it a little bit. Like the Buddha translates in Thai as put, praput. You don't see the connection? I don't, but anyway. Well, they mix up the B's and the P's and the D's and the T's, and so the Dhamma becomes tum. But if you know these changes, then you can understand what they're saying, see. Anyway, I made an effort to try and study Ajahn Chah, and it was coming from my idea was, what is the special secret that Ajahn Chah has to become such a wise teacher? If I can just learn his secret, I can be fast-tracked to enlightenment. How many times have we thought that? The fast track. Well, after 50-odd years, I can tell you that there isn't one. And the Thai forest tradition is the slow one, but you keep your feet on the ground anyway. Very, very grounded. And basically, if you just keep up with it, the result will appear eventually. Can't say when. But many teachers, they have kind of maybe, I wouldn't say exploited, but they have kind of played on this sense of we want to get results. So some of the teachers have kind of modified the teachings to make a special retreat, kind of a fast-track retreat. And I can admit that some people do have bona fide experience. The only trouble is because it isn't grounded in ordinary life, soon evaporates. I learned meditation in Sri Lanka and in a meditation center, and I had no understanding of Buddhism or meditation or anything. I just kind of dropped into this meditation center. I went there and asked the teacher, I said, I'd like to learn meditation. He kind of looked at me and then he said, okay. I was pretty naive, I must say. So I ended up staying there for a whole month of intensive meditation. One day enlightened, the next day crazy. Back and forth, back and forth. But I would say myself that I had some sort of insights. Some of the Buddhist teachings became clearer to me anyway. But as soon as I left the place, evaporated. So it was such an artificial environment. The point was, I understood Buddhism is based upon cause and effect. You have to keep the causes going in order to get the effect. But after this retreat, it was so artificial, I couldn't really sustain it. 19 hours of walking and sitting every day. Well, you did eat. You're allowed to eat too, but they were emphasizing you walk very slowly and you eat very mindfully. And in ordinary life, it's hard to sustain. If you go to a restaurant and you take an hour to eat your meal, they're looking at you very strangely. I remember there was an occasion, maybe it was even Ajahn Chah actually, was showing a Sri Lankan, Burmese monk around London. And he was went to the underground, and he was showing around how to get in a tube. The train comes in, and the doors open, and then the monk is walking very slowly. Was that you? Yes. Yes. Doing very mindful walking, and he's quick, get in. The doors are going to close. The tubes don't wait for even ajahns, So it's a bit hard to sustain that in ordinary life. But I made an effort to try and study Ajahn Chah, and we would go. I went there before the rains retreat, so he would just sit in his kuti, his kuti in the evening, his hut in the evening, and receive guests. Monks would come and talk to him, and lay people come and talk to him, and so I would just sit there and listen carefully, sometimes recording and listening to what he was saying. And as I listened, I listened very carefully what he was saying and teaching. Actually, I got more and more confused because he keeps saying different things to different people. Where is Ajahn Chah's teaching? Where is this core teaching? There's some teachers they have a basic teaching. Wouldn't say a core teaching, but a basic teaching. Meditation. They give certain meditation instructions, and that's their particular specialty. Some emphasize metta practice. Some it's a subha kamatan, and some is anapanasati. But Ajahn Chah said all kinds of things to different people. So where is his real essence? Got more and more confused. And then one day I was just sitting there really confused, and I just realized suddenly, there is no Ajahn Chah. There's only mindfulness and wisdom functioning here. There is no core ego there. We can say this is Ajahn Chah with this particular teaching, this belief system, this views and opinions. There just is mindfulness and wisdom functioning. And when I understood that, now I know why he teaches different things to different people. Because different people need different things. And then it became also a few other of his characteristics became clear too, because it was well known with the Westerners, when you want to go to talk to Ajahn Chah, be very careful what you say. Be very careful what you're thinking. Some people thought he could read your mind. I didn't think that myself. I believe he was just very, very present. He had so much presence of mind, full presence of mind, mindfulness, that he could actually read you. Sometimes much more clearer than you could read yourself. It would be a bit shocking sometimes for some people. You'd say things, and I was like, how did he know that? There's one time when there was one monk, he got a letter from home saying that there was a family issue, and he was very upset about it. So he went to Ajahn Chah to try to ask Ajahn Chah about if he can maybe go home to visit his parents, So he came walking across the courtyard with his letter in his hand, and he came up to Ajahn Chah, and he sat down there, and Ajahn Chah says, "Yes, you have permission to go." He was shocked. But if you think about it, if you're very, very present, and you see this person dragging himself, walking very kind of depressed, with a very anxious expression on his face, with a letter in his hand, probably from overseas, well, a fair conclusion is he has an anxious letter he's got. So the person was quite shocked that he didn't even explain to him what was happening, but Ajahn Chah knew. And it was just like that sometimes. So other times he would kind of play around a little bit. One time he turned to Anagarika and says, "You want to ordain?" And he said, yes. He said, "You can't. You're too eager. If you want to, you can't." And then a few days later, he turned to the Anagarika and said, "Want to ordain?" And the Anagarika says, "No." He said, "Well, you don't have to then." And the third time, he said, "You want to ordain?" "I don't care." He said, "Now you're ready," he said. So he wasn't greedy for it, and he wasn't rejecting it. He was accepting whatever came along. You see. So he was ready for it. So Ajahn Chah was, like I say, to me, he was not, from the usual point of view, we look at people with a certain ego. Everybody has their particular views and opinions, and they have their identity. Sometimes we even know, for example, what they'll say about certain issues. But Ajahn Chah, you could never anticipate what he's going to say. He didn't hold on to a body of views and opinions. He had a certain, of course, general way of teaching. He recognized the value of, fortunately, the traditional Buddhist teachings. So when beginners came along, he could teach the very, very basic teachings. And when people with more advanced practice came along, he could advise them on how to practice, continue their practice, which would benefit them. And it was basically because of his, open-mindedness, his flexibility, that he was able to recognize the value of, sending monks to live in the West and to continue to practice. I mean, once we understand the core principles, it doesn't matter where you are to practice. It doesn't matter what, even if you live in a monastery or not. It doesn't really matter. If you really know how to practice, you can practice everywhere. But this requires some experience. And Ajahn Chah provided the right environment. I mean, when I had learned meditation in Sri Lanka before going to Thailand, so my idea was that I knew the principle, I knew how to meditate. I just go to Thailand, find a peaceful place, and just stay a month, meditate for a month, intensive meditation, just like I did in Sri Lanka, and then intensive meditation, get enlightened, and go home. Well, I got a big surprise at the very beginning, because coming to Thailand, I met some Australian man who had traveled from Australia through Thailand, and he got to Sri Lanka, and we met in Sri Lanka, and he said, "If you really want to learn meditation, go to Thailand. Many meditation masters." What he didn't tell me was, many meditation masters there, but hardly any of them speak English. Whereas in Sri Lanka, almost every senior monk speaks English, so at least I can talk to them. And then there are actually very few meditation monasteries in Thailand, 20,000 temples. But the meditation monasteries, of course, they aren't in the main streets. They're in the forest, far away, so hard to find. So I went to Bangkok thinking I could walk into a meditation monastery, and I had an address actually of a meditation monastery. I went to the tourist office and I asked them where this temple was. They looked at it and, what? They couldn't even read it. So I went up to Chiang Mai, and then I wrote to this monk in Bangkok, and he answered me, and then he said, there's a forest monastery in Chiang Mai you can go to. So I went there. It wasn't a it wasn't a meditation center. It was just a forest monastery related to Ajahn Buddhadasa. And so there's a Western monk there who could translate for me, so I stayed there. But already, we were given a 1-month visa in Thailand, and already took me 3 weeks to find this place. So, okay, got to renew my visa. There's my 1 month already gone. So another month. And make a long story short, this month went on and on and on for 9 years. Every time I thought it was about time to go now, then it was, well, maybe a little bit longer. And then before you know it, it's winter in Canada. Don't want to go back to winter in Canada. Might as well stay till the next spring. Then it was a rains retreat, and but after practicing on my own for 2.5 years, I just thought I just needed to do the practice, but began to slowly fall apart. As probably most of you know, so we have the theory of meditation: sit down, watch your breath. Yeah, but the mind's still working there, isn't it? So the mind, goes through all different experiences, has all different kinds of changes and experiences. So this one little theory of sit down, watch the breath, I just thought I could just sit in a quiet place, watch the breath, and get enlightened. Well, pretty naive, isn't it? Maybe the mind can get quite calm sometimes, but it doesn't stay very long calm, because memories come up, and old patterns come up, and old habits come up, and so I realized there was a little bit more to it than just watching the breath. I didn't really have a teacher. Fortunately, the monastery they had the Pali Canon in English, so I could read the Pali Canon, and get some guidelines for practice. But still, there was questions came up, personal questions which I couldn't really talk to anybody about. My preceptor is actually the meditation teacher in Chiang Mai, but I can't talk to him. I couldn't speak Thai well enough to talk to him about my experiences. So finally, after 2.5 years, I just thought, that's enough. This is not working. Time to change the place. And then I thought, maybe I should go to that place called Wat Pa Pong, see Ajahn Chah. Just check it out before I leave Thailand. Because if you stay in Thailand long enough, you hear about Wat Pa Pong, Ajahn Chah, but the stories I heard were very frightening. Getting up at 3:30 in the morning, 1 meal a day, group practice, holding water, living in northeast Thailand, which is the poorest part of Thailand, so food is very basic. And a teacher. I didn't need a teacher. I didn't need group practice, and I could do it myself. But after 2.5 years, that I had to finally admit that maybe that's not quite true. So I traveled to Wat Pa Pong, and I met Ajahn Chah the first time I don't know how long we got here. I didn't know much about Wat Pa Pong, so I just went to Ubon province, hitchhiked across Thailand. I had no money, so I hitchhiked across, and then I got to Ubon just as at dusk. It's getting dark, and maybe you don't know, in Ubon is a different cultural area than Chiang Mai. In Ubon, they speak Laotian dialect, and the people look very differently. And I got there in the dark, and the people are speaking this strange language, and I thought, "Am I in Laos or something? Have I gone too far?" I remember crossing a border. Anyway, I just walked up to somebody and I said, "Ajahn Chah, Ajahn Chah." He kind of pointed to this bus and said, "Get on this bus and just take it to the end." So I got on the bus and went all the way through Ubon and wore in I was in North Ubon, and the Wat Papong is in south of the city. So I go all the way across the city, across the Moon River. Sounds like a song, doesn't it? Who's old enough to remember that song? Oops. And then the bus came to the end, and the man just said, sort of, "Get out," you know. So I walked out of the bus, and it's totally dark. There's a dirt road going off into the dark. So we just start walking. But fortunately, I didn't walk very long, and a car came along. First car came along, picked me up, and he looked at me and said, a Westerner, and says, "Ajahn Chah?" I said, "Yes." So right to the front gate. And it was about 9-kilometer walk if I'd done it in the dark. So I walked in the gate, and then there's a man there, an Anagarika, you know, and he started screaming at me. You know, he heard the gate open up and started screaming at me, and I was so confused. I just said, you know, in Thai, my few words of Thai, "I'm a Prat Farang, I can't speak Thai." He immediately crouched down. "Oh, sorry." Turns out he's a blind gatekeeper. He did have good hearing, though. One of Ajahn Chah's, I don't know if it was a joke or but so I asked again, Ajahn Chah, he points down this road in the dark. And of course, you know, it never occurred to me, why didn't he give me a torch? Because he never uses one, you see. He didn't even have one. So I come stumbling down this path and bumping into trees left and right, and finally I hit the wall of a sala. And so I crept along the wall of the sala and found the door. It was just a big metal door, and I pulled it open, and all the lights came on, and all the monks are sitting right there meditating with Ajahn Chah in the middle, and I'm standing in the door expecting him to say, "Oh, Ajahn Tiradhammo, welcome." It turns out it was the King of Thailand's birthday, so they were all sitting together and meditating to offer the merit to the King of Thailand for his birthday. So anyway, I broke up the party. Anyway, finally I walked in, and Ajahn Chah I couldn't say very much. He just asked me if I'm a monk or a novice, and I said I was a monk, so he said, "Oh, sit over here." And then he gave a Dhamma talk, which I didn't understand one word. It was in Laotian, I guess. At the end of it, he turns to me, and just a concrete floor. You know, he turns to me and he says, sleep on the concrete floor." My introduction to one monk very kindly pulled out a thin mat, you know, reed mat to lie on the concrete floor. No pillow. No. And then the next day, an alms round, and then meal time came, and I couldn't recognize anything they put in my bowl. It's all Northeast food. You know? Couldn't recognize anything at all. Sticky rice, you know, that's about it. And fortunately, after the meal time, this monk came in, Western monk came in and started talking to me. You know, a very tall Western monk. And then I said, "Oh, are you Ajahn Sumedho, by the way?" He said, "Oh, no. I'm Viradhammo," he said. Another Canadian. So anyway, I went to see Ajahn Sumedho, who was there talking to Ajahn Chah, and Ajahn Chah just said, "Take this guy to Wat Nana Chah. He can't speak Thai." So to my surprise, I thought I didn't need the discipline, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I didn't need the group practice, and I didn't need all these bells ringing all the time for water hauling and all this. But I found actually it was useful. I found actually I was just ready for it. My own discipline had kind of faded away, so to have a bell at 3 o'clock in the morning to get up for 4 o'clock was helpful. And not only that, but with a group of people, you know, if you don't do that, then eyes are looking at you. You know, where were you this morning? Especially when it came to the water holing. In those days, there's no taps. We had the whole water from a deep well, you see, and it was quite a task. It took quite a bit of effort, pulling on the ropes and the water in a big container of water, and then we had to pour it out into other containers, carried around the monastery to the bowl washing, the bathing place, the foot washing. So I've been in Chiang Mai. I've been meditating on my own. So I just was sitting in my hut, meditating. I say sort of, I was being alone. It was quite peaceful. I was just sitting there meditating on the verge of enlightenment, and ding, 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 the bell rings for water holing. Water holing is not meditation. Holding water is a distraction. You're meditating. Just continue. So the first day I continued, just sat there and didn't go to the water holing. Next morning, everybody's all these eyes looking at me, daggers. Where were you for the water holing? I was getting enlightened, meditating, getting enlightened. It didn't go down very well. They didn't understand that. Anyway, the next day, the bell rang again. The same thing. I was sitting there, my mind very peaceful. Ding, 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 ding. The bell rings. Okay. I live in Ajahn Chah's monastery. Maybe I should follow his routine. So I went. I got up, grumbling. Okay, I'll do it. And went to the water holing and was still complaining and arguing with myself. And went through the procedure back to my hut after the water holing. Sat there and grumbled. Very unpeaceful. So the third day, the same thing happened again, and I thought, okay, I should just do what Ajahn Chah says. When you eat, you eat. When you walk, you walk. When you haul water, you haul water. Just be present with whatever you do. So I said, okay, maybe I'll try that. So I got up from my sitting and went to the water holing and hauled the water, and my mind was very reasonably peaceful. Went through all the motions of hauling water, got back, sat down again, and peace. What Ajahn Chah says works. Doesn't matter what you do. I thought meditation was just sitting. And as probably many of you have already heard, one of Ajahn Chah's sayings was, somebody, he told somebody, he said, well, I've seen chickens sit on eggs for ages, sit on nests for ages, never get any wiser. Because most people had assumed meditation was sitting. Right? When you hear, I meditate, do you think of water holing? Do you think of sweeping? You think of sitting, right? But Ajahn Chah's idea of meditation was presence of mind, collectedness and clarity wherever you go, whatever you do. And maybe, sitting sometimes can be supportive of collectedness and calm, but can you sit forever? How long can you sit? Whereas if you can bring presence of mind to whatever you're doing, then you're meditating all the time, not just sitting. If occasion arises when you can sit, then it gives you maybe a bit more support for calmness of mind. But when you get up from the sitting, don't leave the calm there. Take it with you. Try and carry it with you. You're strengthening it with these formal exercises, but ideally it should be part of our everyday life. That meditation is a way of life. That's what Ajahn Chah was really emphasizing to me. I had learned meditation in a meditation center, and it was all about just sitting, doing the formal sitting exercises and walking exercises. Just those two. They did also tell us, when we're going to have the meal, we walk very slowly, and we eat the meal very slowly, trying to be mindful, but the main emphasis was on sitting and walking. But with staying at Ajahn Chah's monastery was, if you wanted to just sit and walk, you have a hard time because there's so many activities going on. Besides the water hauling and the sweeping, and then there was a chanting in the evening and the group practice, and you weren't left in your hut to meditate on your own for very long. You had to go to the sala for the evening and morning pujas, and so when we begin to understand, we can understand that principle. Then even going to live in a foreign country, is also, not only is it a continuity of practice, but also can be quite challenging of practice. If you learn how to practice in Thailand, for example, we used to have the all-night meditations every week, according to the lunar day. Do you do that here too? I should mention it. To midnight. Okay. Yeah. Well, in Thailand, we used to do it every week, all night, and I actually quite enjoyed them sometimes. Not in the hot season because everybody was melting, but because of the mild climate there, it's quite easy to get up to sit and then get up and walk, and it was the sala had overhangs around it, so if it was raining, you could still be under shelter, and so it was easy to change postures, and everybody was sitting in the sala together, and it was generally quite warm, the climate. And then I came to Britain, and then I was going to change the posture, go outside, and it's freezing cold, and it's raining, and it's dark, and not quite so so friendly to sitting up meditating all night. You say, well, the cold will keep you awake anyway. And when we first came here, I came in '82, and if nobody else remembers, but in 1982 we put a new roof on the house up here. In the house, spent the whole rains retreat putting a new roof on. So after morning puja, we had some drink, and then we upped the ladders up on the roof, taking the tiles off, putting tiles up again, and then after the meal, up to the roof again and back down again. Active meditation. But over the years, we've had to recognize whether our core principles of our monastic life and practice, it also needs some adapting sometimes. For example, some of the rules we follow, like just for example, this jacket here. It was the first year I came here, and one of the monks he designed this jacket here, because of course I came from Thailand with my bare shoulder, and it was, even though it was June, it was still a little bit chilly here. So it wasn't 35 degrees like in Thailand. And then over the years, people gave us various things, clothes to wear to keep warm. And then one day I remember sitting in the sala in the house there, and then the monks were coming in, to the mealtime, and they had it was like a rainbow of colors. So we had everything from orange to red to purple to brown to green. No, not green, but every color of the rainbow, of sweatshirts and T-shirts and jumpers, and and then one of the monks mentioned that if you have a brown jacket, we can put over it, so we all have brown, not pink or orange or red. So and then we even and Ajahn Chah was very keen to try and keep the connection with Thailand, so he was very careful to inquire of the senior monks in Thailand about our changes in the West. So he made up, one time they made up a kind of a photo album, and they showed, the jacket here, and we had to wear, waterproof footwear, and we had to have a hat, a beanie, and we showed the senior monks in Thailand. Most of them were quite acceptable of it. You have to adapt to the Western climate. There were a few who were a bit resistant. So there was one principle was to try and maintain something similar to Thailand, like wearing sandals as the main footwear. But if it was muddy area we had to go through, we had to wear boots. And then I was teaching the Vinaya few times I was here, and then we had to make special adjustments. Those who know probably not many of you know the Vinaya, but anyway, there's a whole section on footwear in the Vinaya. And some of the monks were being very creative, so they wore footwear with sequins on them, or they put feathers on the footwear and things like this. And the Buddha said, no, just basic footwear. So we finally decreed that we can't wear green Wellington boots. Do you still follow that? Or? Don't. Okay, yeah. Yes. It gets down to the refinements. But so far, the connection with Thailand has been still maintained. So, fortunately, we're able to go back and forth. Live in Thailand sometimes, comes back to the West, and there's not a big difference in how our main standard of living. I mean, maybe we have to. For example, when I was in Switzerland, our monastery there is at 1,200 meters, and I go to the Ajahn Chah ceremony in January, and so I had to walk through a meter of snow to get to the train station. So wearing my Thai angsa and my flip-flops was not very helpful to walk through the snow. so I had to. The Anagarika came with me. I was wearing the moon boots and the big parka and two sets of gloves and scarves and hats, and got to the train and then undressed all this stuff, put it on the cart, and got into the train with my Thai clothes on, my cotton robe and my bare shoulder. They have heated trains in Switzerland, you see, right to the airport. So, then coming back, I got to the train and Kandersteg, and then the Anagarika was waiting there for me with all my parka and my gloves and moon boots again, and took off my flip-flops and put. But if we don't hold on to, there's a saying, one of the attachments is sila bhatta paramata, attachment to rites and rituals or rules and regulations. That's one of the four upadanas or graspings. And you can say that the Buddha grew up in a you can say a Brahmanic or Hindu culture. So it was quite a variety of different practices in the Buddha's time. But many of them were quite based upon a kind of a worship of gods. It's based upon the Brahmanas. One of the scriptures is based upon special rituals you had to follow to placate the gods. You see, and so you had to follow this very, very strict routine, the strict way of chanting, special practices you did. You had to follow them very, very strictly in order to please the god. You see, but the Buddha grew up in this, and he's realized that the mind is not like that. If you're training the mind, the mind is not. It does not follow one fixed method or fixed procedure. You're working with processes in the mind. So you need to have a much more open and flexible approach. That's what the whole basis of mindfulness is, I would say. In the Brahmanical tradition, there's very little mention of mindfulness. The Buddha was the one who kind of realized the value of this and raised it up to a spiritual power. Practice of mindfulness, sati. There was samadhi. Samadhi was actually, the Hindus were very developed in the practice of samadhi or concentration or collectedness. And the Buddha adapted it. He borrowed some of the teachings from the Brahmanical tradition, Hindu tradition. But he realized that was not enough. The Buddha was emphasizing the value of wisdom. of seeing the way things really are, and not just following some rituals. If you follow rituals, and it does. If you follow some pattern of life, some rituals and ceremonies, your mind can become very calm and very peaceful. That's what the basis of samadhi is. Going back to the breath, back to the breath, back to the breath, back to the breath, and psychology realizes now if you keep focusing on one particular thing in your mind calms down. Your anxiety goes away, your fear goes away. You just keep one thing in your mind, ideally a wholesome thing, like breathing or positive thoughts. But when you stop that repetitive focusing, it fades away again. But the Buddha realized, okay, but when your mind is somewhat peaceful, it'll be easier to observe what happens behind it. What stirs up the calm? What destroys the calm? You maintain the calm, but then what creeps in? That's important to realize. What is disturbing it? So this is where we need mindfulness, to be aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the states of mind that come in and disturb you. I mean, of course, if your mind isn't calm enough, it'll really disturb you, won't it? So you can't observe it. It'll be too disturbing. You're taken off by it, taken away by it. The three things the Buddha taught, the first three states of mind to be aware of: greed, aversion, delusion. He didn't say be aware, be mindful of metta and generosity and wisdom. Be aware of greed, aversion, delusion. Pretty hard lesson, isn't it? And basically, who wants to be aware of their greed, aversion, delusion? Thank you, but no thank you. However, this is already the third exercise in developing mindfulness. We already passed through the anapanasati exercises. So from a basis of anapanasati, focusing on the breathing, you have some degree of calm. So if you bring that calm into observing your greed, aversion, delusion, it's a bit different, right? I'm talking to advanced people, aren't I? Meditators, right? Yes? For example, your aversion. If your mind is somewhat calm, you can actually observe a certain level of aversion anyway. If it gets too much, back to the breath, back to the breath, back to the breath. Keep your point of reference. Keep your focus. Keep your calm. But then when the mind is calm enough, this is always a little bit of a point of controversy with the forest meditation masters. How much calm do we need? And when I was in Thailand after my fifth rains, I was fortunate to be able to go Tudong, wander around Thailand, and visited many meditation masters. And that was one of the questions I asked them, one of my trick question. How much samadhi do we need? How much calm do we need? And almost all of them answered differently. But then when I came back to Wat Papong and I asked Ajahn Chah, how much calm do we need? Because in the Ajahn Mun tradition, traditionally they say you should develop the fourth level of absorption, which is pretty advanced. Four levels of absorption, you see. So I asked Ajahn Chah, how much calm do we need? And he just, in his typical way, he turned to me and says, just calm enough, he said. And I was just about ready to strangle him. Okay. What's enough? Come on, tell me, 1, 2, or 3, or 4. And it took me, after I got over my shock, and I contemplated it, I realized how profound that was. Because, first of all, everybody has a different they can use or benefit from different levels of calm. I've met people who are quite gifted at developing calm meditation, and some of them, they just escape into it. They don't develop any wisdom. They just escape into calm because they have this special ability. So there was actually one lady who came here many years ago, she was a bit, I guess she suffered from anxiety. I didn't know, at that time, but, these psychological terms. But anyway, she used to come here, and her eyes would be wide open like this, and then she'd rush to the meditation hall and sit there. And after about 15, 20 minutes, she'd, then she'd come out, and then she'd be very friendly and very peaceful. And then 2 weeks later, she'd back again, back again. It was like she came for her meditation fix, But it does have results, of course. But the point the Buddha was pointing at was that we use the calm in order to investigate, the disturbances of calm. We can relieve them. We can release them. And it's only by investigating the very causes of your suffering that you can resolve it. If you just escape from your suffering into tranquility and calm, okay, it's good for a while. We all need a break sometimes, but you're never going to resolve it. It's just the Buddha said, a temporary abiding in peace. Until we can actually investigate the causes of our suffering, we're never going to become free of it. So when your mind is somewhat calm, then this is a good opportunity to investigate. Greed, aversion, delusion, for example. To be investigated. Investigation is not just thinking about it. It means it's inquiring from the point of view of calm. So you can use your brain to say, okay, what is this aversion? But then allow the silent mind to answer for you. So it comes from an experiential point of view and not intellectual point of view. And sometimes the answer is there, sometimes not. Sometimes, the aversion, sometimes, and you ask what's aversion, it's a whole variety. It's a whole vast array of different kinds of aversion, isn't there? There's no one word we use, aversion, but when it comes to the experience, there's a huge range of different kinds. But if you say, for example, if you investigate it, you can recognize what kinds of aversion you can say are dangerous for you or threatening to you. So back to the calm. We need more calm, more clarity. But eventually, calm and clarity, mindfulness and wisdom and samadhi, they develop enough. They become spiritual powers. They will cut through all greed, aversion, delusion. That's what the Buddha is teaching us anyway. And by developing the practice, we begin to see for ourselves, step by step. And then I was very fortunate to meet Ajahn Chah and many other meditation masters, and even though they had different techniques, different practices, but it was still based upon the fundamental Buddhist teachings, meditation teaching of calm and insight. And being with Ajahn Chah, it was first of all, I couldn't figure out what he was, what was his special gift. And so it's kind of ironic, the Ajahn Chah's special gift was that he was not Ajahn Chah. he could drop the whole persona. I was just talking to a former monk drove me to the airport in Zurich. So we were talking about how we experience these people, and he just said he didn't meet Ajahn Chah, but he met another meditation teacher. And he said he just has no pretensions, no games, no ego games being played there, no pretensions. He's just like a very innocent child. So to be able to recognize that it can be experienced. It's not easy necessarily, but it is possible. And the more that we practice, Ajahn Chah says, you practice a little bit, you get a little result, and the more you practice, the more result you get. So it's a matter of just doing the practice, and say doing the practice, but the practice, as it begins to become more developed, of course it broadens out too. So it requires maybe a lot more reflection, contemplation. We have to listen to teachers, study the Pali Canon. We have to kind of broaden our whole perspective of what practice is. when I was first in Thailand, practice was just watching the breath. And now I realize that it's practice. As Ajahn Chah said, everything is practice. Everything. At first, I was a bit too much for me. I couldn't handle everything. So I say now, keep it simple and broaden out from there. So even though I would say Ajahn Chah is long gone physically, but his presence is still with us. All his teachings, all his example is still relevant to us today. Just like the same as the Buddha. The Buddha's passed away 2,500 years ago, but his presence still reverberates through the centuries, and his teaching is still relevant. It's a universal teaching, still relevant today, if people are willing to practice it. So hopefully we'll be able to, take that as an example and put it into practice, and we'll see the results for ourselves. So I leave that for your contemplation tonight.
This evening we'll chant the verses of sharing and aspiration, and before we close the evening, we'll do that in English. That's in the dark brown volume on page 33. I know earlier I'd said that we'd have some meditation, but I think we can, as the evening goes on like this, we'll close the evening now. And so...
Sorry.
No.
Sorry.
No apology. Yeah. Not energetically. We're going to be chanting, so you'll stay with us for the chanting? Yep. So, page 33 in English, verses of sharing and aspiration. Now let us chant the verses of sharing and aspiration. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, may my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life. May they soon attain the threefold bliss and realize the deathless through the goodness that arises from my practice. And through this act of sharing, may all cravings and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until I realize Nibbana in every kind of birth. May I have an upright mind, with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge, unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is my noble guide. The Sangha is my supreme support. Through the supreme power of all these, may darkness and delusion be dispelled. And we'll do the closing homage in Pali and English, and that's on page 16 in the dark brown book, page 16. Arahang Sama Sambuddho Bhagava, the Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed one, Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. I render homage to the Buddha, the blessed one. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo, the teaching so completely explained by him. Dhammang Namasami, I bow to the Dhamma. Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho, the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well. Sanghang Namami, I bow to the Sangha. Pay respects to Luang Por.